Before you start, before installing Strataflex, you should check to ensure you have everything you need. Here are a few things to remember. Make sure the product is as ordered, free from damage, and enough to complete the job. The surfaces you are working on should be sound, smooth, and the working area should be free from contamination. This will reduce the possibility of anything sticking to the self-adhesive backer as you are working. The working environment should be well lit and not too hot or cold. Tools. To install Strataflex, the essential tools we think you will need are a good quality brush, tape measure, range of spatulas, including the essential 10 cm small spatula, joint cutter and spare blades to trim backing papers, sharp knives, a good pair of scissors. Materials. Adhesion enhancer is used where the bond needs to be strengthened, for example on the edge of doors or overlapped areas. Next, a 2-pack filler for achieving a hard, non-porous filled surface. Surface testing. To ensure adhesion, we recommend that before starting, you always carry out a substrate test, even if it looks completely sound. To do this, take a small piece of Strataflex and apply it to an unobtrusive part of the surface of the area you intend to cover. Remove it after a few minutes, examine the backer and see if any of the substrate has become detached. Here, a sound substrate indicates that the product can be repositioned a number of times without damaging the surface. Here, however, the substrate is damaged by the adhesive and shows that repositioning of the product is not possible, and the product must be fixed in place correctly the first time. If you have any doubts, contact your supplier. Covering shapes and objects. One of the unique features of Strataflex is that you can cover various different shapes and objects by using heat to soften the product and stretching it around corners and edges, which would otherwise prove to be very difficult to cover. Using a small brush, apply a thin coat of Strataflex adhesion enhancer to the areas as shown. It's recommended that all edges and angles are treated with the Strataflex adhesion enhancer. Allow to dry. Cut some Strataflex roughly to size, allowing enough for underlapping the edges. Make the usual double cut in the product to allow you to position it easily. Place the product on the surface and remove the strip of release paper. Apply the product and smooth into place using the spatula. Once the top is applied, you can work on the edges. For the edges, you will need a hairdryer or heat gun on a low setting. Apply the hot air to an area of the surface of the product which you are holding lightly, and you will feel that the product begins to soften and become pliable. Once in this state, you can stretch it around the shapes you are working on. You will need to pull it quite tightly, but try not to overstretch it or tear it. You can see that it can be repositioned a number of times. The end result should be nice, clean edges. Once all the edges have been wrapped, you can turn over and finish off the underside. Using heat again, smooth out the underside so that you have a reasonable amount as an underlap of approximately 2 centimeters. This is then trimmed to make a neat edge. To finish off, enhance the underside and apply a pre-cut piece of product to prevent any shrink back. Applying Strataflex to doors. Another unique feature of Strataflex is the ability to cover doors, either as a new finish or more commonly as a refurbished finish on old doors. The end results when covering used or old doors are quite amazing. Either in situ or ideally off its hinges, as with this standard white painted internal door, you'll see how to cover the door and how to make a joint down the edges. First of all, make sure the door is sound and carry out a substrate test. remove any door furniture, sand and fill any rough areas and make the door as smooth as you can. Then enhance the edges, top, bottom and any areas of filling. Cut your Strataflex to approximate width and length and trim the top of the backing paper as for other applications. Apply the product to the door surface and using 2 pieces of masking tape on the surfaces as guide points or something similar, align the product so that it's square and straight against the door face. Peel off the top strip of backing paper and apply the product to the door surface. Using the spatula in a horizontal motion, smooth out the rest of the product down the door. At the bottom of the door, use a piece of spare release paper to protect the last section of product as you trim it off. Covering door edges. There are 2 methods of covering door edges. One is to overlap the product on top of itself, and the other is to make a joint down the center of the door. Overlap and trim joint. When preparing the first piece of product for installation, a piece of backing paper about 1 centimetre or ½ inch wide at each edge will have been left on. Once the first side of the door is covered, bend the product around the edge of the door and smooth into place. Using direct heat or a cloth to generate some heat through friction will help. You can see the backing paper still in place. Smooth the product all the way down the edge so that it's firmly applied. Now cover the other side of the door in the same way as the first side and bend the product round the edge again. For this second piece, you do not leave the backing paper on the edges. With the 2 faces covered and the edges wrapped, you need to make a cut down the center through both pieces of product. Here you see a piece of perspex angle is used as a guide. Using a sharp knife, make a cut from top to bottom and remove all backing papers and excess product, and using a spatula, carefully smooth down the joint. The overlap joint. Having covered the first side of the door, leave enough product to cover the full edge. Again, using friction heat or a direct heat source, smooth the product into place down the full edge of the door. When trimming the sides, use a sharp knife at a slight angle to minimize the lip of the cut product. Enhance the edge and allow to dry, and then take the next piece and wrap it over the other one. Smooth this into place and trim again with an angled cut. Trim round any hinges or locks, and you'll end up with a neat and new looking door. Applying Strataflex to doors with vision panels. If you want to cover a door with a vision panel, you can also do this using Strataflex. Again, test the surface to make sure it's sound. Use adhesion enhancer on all edges, top and bottom, and around the vision panel. Having measured and cut the product to size, we now need to make 2 cuts in the backer to allow us to install it around the window. After measuring the door to determine where we want to cut the backer, one cut is near the top and the other just above the edge of the vision panel. This is how the release paper should look. Using masking tape to position it correctly, smooth the top part into place using the spatula. Feeling for the top of the vision panel, make a small cut at each side. Then, feeling for the panel underneath, cut out the shape so it slightly overlaps the frame. Pull down the backing paper and smooth the product into position at each side of the vision panel. Continue to smooth it into position in small sections. Push the product tightly round the panel and trim the excess using a spatula. There we see the door finished off. If you want to cover the bars of the vision panel, this can be done as a separate procedure. Thank you for your interest in our products, and good luck with all your installations.